The NFL just made a surprising move that has everyone talking, and Falcons fans, you'll want to pay attention. I'm here to fill you in on all the details, so don't forget to hit that like button. Let's dive in. Imagine getting in trouble for something, losing a draft pick and paying fines, only to find out a year later that it's now perfectly fine. That's exactly what happened to the Atlanta Falcons. If you're not excited yet, just wait. By the end of this, you will be. Here's the scoop. The NFL has introduced a new rule that allows teams to talk directly to players, not just their agents, during the legal tampering period. This might sound familiar because it's what got the Falcons in hot water last year when they were accused of contacting Kirk Cousins, Darnell Mooney, and Charlie Werner inappropriately. Their punishment? A big fine and the loss of a fifth-round draft pick. Now fast forward to today, and suddenly it's all okay. Teams can now talk to up to 5 players directly during the 2-day window before free agency starts. How does that make sense? Just a year ago, the Falcons were punished for something that is now allowed. It's like the NFL is saying, "Oops, we were a bit too tough. Let's move on." But what about the draft pick they lost? Shouldn't the league think about giving it back since the rules have changed? It feels unfair to punish a team for something that wasn't even a rule yet, only to make it legal later. This inconsistency from the NFL is frustrating, especially for the Falcons, who were penalized for actions that every other team can now take. And the timing couldn't be worse. With the draft coming up, that missing fifth-round pick still hurts, especially for a team with only a few picks this year. Now let's talk about another important rule change: kickoff returns. Last season, the NFL moved touchbacks from the 25-yard line to the 30. Now they're moving it again to the 35. This might seem like a small change, but it's a big deal, especially for teams like the Falcons. Why? Because Atlanta's special teams relied on kicking the ball deep into the end zone, ensuring touchbacks and giving opponents the ball at the 30. But now, with the new rule, any touchback puts the ball at the 35, giving the other team better field position. This change forces teams to rethink their kickoff strategy. The Falcons were in the middle of the pack when it came to touchbacks. Unlike teams like the Saints or Commanders who tried to kick short to force returns, Atlanta was happy to kick it deep. Now that might not be the best plan anymore. The coaching staff will have to decide. Do they risk giving up more returns by trying to pin teams inside the 25, or do they stick with touchbacks and give up valuable field position at the 35? And there's also a change to the overtime rules. Now both teams will get a chance to possess the ball in overtime, even if the first team scores a touchdown. While this is a fairer approach, it takes away some of the advantage of winning the coin toss. If your team usually did well in overtime by getting the ball first and scoring quickly, this new rule makes that a lot tougher. So, how does all this affect the Falcons? Honestly, this change might not have as big of an impact as the others. The Falcons haven't been in many nail-biting overtime games lately, and there's no strong evidence that they really benefited from the old overtime rules. But it's still something to think about, especially in those close, late-season matchups where one drive could mean the difference between making the playoffs or going home early. Now let's talk about another important rule change: replay assist. This one is significant because it allows officials to step in and correct certain penalties after they've been called. But before you get too excited, let's clarify what this means. Officials can only reverse flags on 5 specific types of calls: hits on defenseless players, face masks, horse collar tackles, tripping and running into or roughing the kicker. Notice anything missing? That's right, there's no mention of roughing the passer. So even if there's a terrible roughing the passer call, replay assist can't fix it. If you were hoping this change would help prevent those questionable flags that have hurt teams in the past, you might be disappointed. Now, what about the Falcons? This rule could help them in some situations, especially when they've been hurt by bad calls like face masks or horse collar tackles. However, the biggest missed opportunity is that replay assist can't correct no calls. If a clear penalty is missed, the officials can't do anything afterward. That's frustrating, especially for a league that has faced its share of officiating controversies. Finally, there's the introduction of Hawkeye technology for ball spotting. If you've ever watched tennis, you know how precise this system is. Now, the NFL will use it to determine the exact placement of the ball during games. This means no more relying on the chain gang to measure first downs manually. For teams like the Falcons, this is a positive change. No more questionable spots or depending on the human eye to figure out where the ball should be placed. Everything will be done with accuracy. Let's be honest. If this system had been in place in previous seasons, there are probably a few key third down and fourth down situations that could have turned out differently for Atlanta. So there you have it. Some of the biggest rule changes coming to the NFL and how they affect the Falcons. But let's get back to the big question. Should the Falcons get their fifth-round draft pick back? It's hard to argue against it when you think about how unfair this situation is. Atlanta was punished for something that is now completely legal. It's almost laughable. I want to hear from you. Do you think the NFL should return the Falcons' lost draft pick, or is this just another case of the league changing the rules whenever they want? Share your thoughts in the comments. And here's where it gets even more frustrating for Falcons fans. The NFL has a history of hitting Atlanta with questionable punishments. Remember the 2016 artificial crowd noise scandal? The Falcons lost a draft pick, paid fines, and yet now teams pump artificial noise into stadiums every week without any consequences. The loss of that fifth-round pick might not seem huge, but in a rebuilding phase, every draft selection counts. Just look at the impact that fifth-round picks like Tyreek Hill and Richard Sherman have had in the NFL. Atlanta could have found a hidden gem in the draft, but now that chance is gone. What's worse is that the league isn't even acknowledging how unfair this is. There's been no discussion, no reconsideration, just silence. Now let's talk about how these new rules will affect the game on the field. The kickoff change hits Cordarrelle Patterson hard, one of the best returners in NFL history. With touchbacks now starting at the 35-yard line, teams will likely avoid kicking to him altogether, which limits his chances to change the game with a big return. This also puts pressure on Younghoe Koo and the special teams unit to rethink their strategy. Should they keep kicking deep or try shorter kicks and risk giving up big returns? The new replay assist rule is a mixed bag as well. It allows officials to correct certain penalties, but it doesn't address some of the biggest issues, like roughing the passer calls. Falcons fans know all too well how bad officiating can turn a game around, yet the NFL has conveniently left out some of the most controversial calls from being reviewed. And what about the overtime rule? Sure, both teams now get a chance to possess the ball, but will that really make the game better? For a team like Atlanta, which has struggled to finish games, this might just complicate things even more. So here's the big question. Should the NFL give Atlanta back their lost draft pick? Should teams be punished for something that's now legal? I want to hear your thoughts. Drop your comments below. Hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Go Falcons!